Hi, I'd like to welcome you to my third teaching video. As you've just heard, that was me blowing away on a few of my own songs in a band type of situation. This is what this teaching session is primarily aimed at, is getting you to put all the knowledge that I've given you in the last two videos together and playing in a band type of situation. We're going to be dealing with a few more licks, a few more bottleneck tricks, a few more chords. And also I'm going to be giving you some very useful tips of how to keep yourself, body and soul and heart together on the road with a band. Let's take the first thing first. I'm going to roll you a little Chuck Berry type tape and I'm going to play along to that to give you an idea of some of the easy licks you can play in that situation. Let's roll the tape. Let's deal first with a couple of very simple licks. We're playing in the key of A. Watch my hands carefully. I'm placing my index finger on the 8th fret on the B string. My middle pinky, stretching it over slightly and placing it on the 9th fret on the G string. Played like this, it sounds like this. Pull the string slightly as you do it because it gives you that kind of nice whiny effect. What I'm doing there is I'm playing simple up and down strokes. You can play it like this if you want to. It doesn't really matter. Again, you use your imagination and stretch out in your mind what I've showed you. Let me just show you the next part of that lick. I'm making a bar at the 7th position just across the G string and the B string, and just playing them straightforward chopping motion. Put the whole thing together, it sounds like this. So all you're doing is you're coming up from that position, placing your bar, it doesn't matter which finger you do it with, whichever you feel most comfortable with again, and placing it on the 7th position, and lastly finish up in the 5th position. That's another way you can play it like this too if you like. Add the E string in and play it at the 9th position and you get this. Nice and bluesy, very simple, very effective. So work away with that for a little while and see how you feel. Let's hear it your way. I'm going to talk to you now about slurring the strings and how vibrato can make a very simple lick sound really, really open and effective. All I'm doing here is simply placing my 4th finger over the G string at the 7th position and pulling it across. If I did it without pulling it, it would simply sound like this, or I would have to push this note up a tone. And I think you'll agree there's a vast difference between doing this and doing this. If I bar right across the 7th position with the B string as well and pull them, and again don't forget your dexterity exercises here, loosen those fingers up because you're going to have to do a lot of pulling. This method of pulling 2 notes across is simply called double stopping. Let's go on to the next part now. My first finger is on the 10th position on the B string, pulling that middle pinky over to rest on the 11th position on the G string. Play these 2 notes The next position is I bring the fourth finger over and place it on the 12th position and push the string upwards. This time we don't pull across, we push upwards. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm actually going up only a semitone or one fret. Put together it sounds like this. Don't forget that vibrato at the end. There's a couple of simple little licks that you can play quite easily within the framework of this type of 12 bar. Practice it around for a little bit, have a little rest, get your thoughts together and play it the way you feel it should be played. Don't forget there's no set way for playing it, it depends entirely on you. All I'm doing is giving you the information. Don't forget, again, most importantly, make it come from the heart. You will find a difference, I guarantee it. Now what I'm going to do is slow the track down again so that you can play along. In the first part, I'm going to do a little bit of lead. In the next part, I'm going to play straightforward, simple rhythm, and you can take over. Let's have the count. Do you guys feel good with that? Did you notice one thing that I did there? When I was playing the rhythm part, I was actually chopping around and changing all kinds of different figures. Basically, it's all the things that we've been talking about in the last two videos, simply put together, backwards, forwards and sideways. What you need to remember is when you're playing a song, when you're playing in a band situation, it's a team effort. And it's up to the guys that are with you to make a nice groove for you to play on. But don't forget, adhere to the format, keep practicing. Let's go on to the next thing now. I'm going to play a song now which is a Bobby Bland blues song, something that's been a real favourite of mine over the years, and I've actually recorded it a couple of times myself. But the point I'm trying to make here is those little Chuck Berry type riffs and those two-note slurs are something that you can employ equally as well and equally as effectively in a slow blues in a minor key as opposed to a different feel in a major key. Let's break this all down now. This is in the key of G minor, but what I'm doing here, remember we discussed earlier on the G minor? Easy and straightforward, you can see what I'm doing on the fretboard there. Now this is going to take a little bit more dexterity and a little bit more patience and practice on your part. Don't despair, it comes easily with practice. What I'm doing here is I'm putting my little pinky up to the 7th position on the D string and making an A note within the G minor chord. This makes it a G minor 9th. It's that kind of nice atmospheric G minor shape. The next chord in the sequence is a simple C7th. Here's a slightly different way to play it. I'm placing my index finger and making a bar at the 3rd position. I'm leaving the middle pinky up slightly and the little pinky, or my little finger, in outer space. And with my 4th finger, I'm bringing it over and placing it at the 5th position on the D string. If you play then from the A string downwards, we then have a very, very nice open C7th. It complements the G minor 9th chord very well. Simplicity itself, to make the dominant chord of this particular section, is slide it up all the way to the 5th position, that's 2 semitones or 2 frets or 1 tone, and make a D seventh. There's one more extra chord in the sequence in this particular song, and that is C sharp seventh. Listen to it as I put it all together with the track. Next, I'm going to play along with the track, but this time I'm going to play a very simple lead melody. You may find this strange, but it actually relates to the last number we did, and exactly the same kind of things we were looking at. Have a listen and see what you think. If you like, you can play along and play rhythm. Come on, give it a try. You've got to learn sometime. Let's go. I hope the picture that I'm trying to paint for you now is getting a bit of colour in it. Of course, you must have noticed that the things that I was playing on that little lead lick was not unsimilar to the thing I played just before this, which of course was in a major key. So you can see how they can all be useful in either a major or a minor key, in this specific instance a blues. Now here comes the backing track again. This time I'm going to play the lead part first, and I want you to play the rhythm part with me, and then you're going to be the lead guitar player and I'm going to be the rhythm player. Let's go for it. Excuse me a minute. Back to business now. Let's assume that you are now capable of playing quite a few good little licks and a few good chords, and you're at the stage where you want to interact with other musicians. For example, join a band or even form one. I'd like to give you some of the tips that I was never given, which may well help you in your musical path. The first thing, and most importantly, is that you take care of your instrument. Some of the people I've seen just literally throw the guitar in the case after a gig, and they forget there's going to be sweat, condensation, and all other sort of nasty things building up on the fretboard and in the electrics, which could cost you a rather dear service at a later point, just when you're not expecting it. The reliability of your instrument is paramount. I can't stress that enough. It doesn't have to be the greatest looking thing or the most expensive thing in the world, but it does have to be reliable, it does have to work. The first point you should always remember is clean your guitar after a gig. Just get a nice little duster, don't cost you more than a couple of bob. Wipe it off, wipe the sweat off, polish it, make sure you clean your strings. It always affects the tone of your strings if there is dirt and sweat building up behind it. And there's nothing worse than a really awful sounding guitar simply for the fact it doesn't resonate correctly. Your amplifier is also another important consideration. Don't forget, that's part of your sound, and it also costs a lot of money. A very simple way of protecting your amplifier is just buying a small cover to go over it and protect it from wind, rain or whatever weather conditions prevail. There's nothing worse than working out from a gig afterwards, trying to put it in the van with no cover on it, the doors are locked and a storm erupts. Not funny, and I do speak from experience. Secondly, you may want to buy, at a certain point in time, things like effects. Things like these can be put in boxes to make them safe while they're in transit, or to stop them generally getting thrown about or trodden on. However much care you may take of your instrument and your amplifier, things have been known to break down. They do from time to time, that's a fact of life. So prepare for those little emergencies. Carry a few spare bits and bobs with you in your guitar case or your rack case. Take my guitar case for instance. This is a very simple and inexpensive tool that I carry. It's called a Gitool. In fact, it's a multi-tool. It's got about 4 or 5 different screwdrivers and loads of Allen keys, so if you get a pickup screw suddenly drops out or you want to change it very quickly, you've got all these things handy, and it folds away quite flat, so fits nicely in your guitar case. Secondly, a set of spare strings, always very useful if you get those breakages. Something to wind the string with very quickly to save you messing around would be a string winder. Certainly I've got another set of cutters here because that cuts my strings to a very neat length and saves me poking myself in the eye or stabbing myself to death on loose string ends. This you may find strange, it's an old toothbrush. No, I don't clean my teeth with it anymore. I simply use that to get some of the caked mud and sweat and the grime that builds up on the guitar surfaces around the pickups and on the bridge. And in my case, the guitar that I use it to clean the roller nuts out, so it allows the strings to move more freely. I carry a spare tuner. This one's a slightly more expensive one, but there are some very good quality inexpensive ones on the market. Or even carry perhaps a spare tuning fork or a spare set of pitch pipes. I always carry a spare bottleneck. I use 2 or 3 others. Very important again, 2 or 3 spare picks. You never know when you may break one or drop one. And lastly, but most certainly not leastly, a roll of the good old-fashioned gaffer tape. Not very expensive, and it can save somebody walking across the stage and pulling all your leads out with one foul stroke. Just tape them down on the ground, tape them down around the back of your amplifier, just make the whole thing a little bit tidier, and it keeps your gear in good condition. If you're playing with a band, you're going to get hot. Always take a spare shirt with you, take a towel, and just a change of clothes, because let's face it, if you walk out in the open air and you're still very hot and you're sweating, you're going to catch a cold, and if you do, you ain't going to make the next gig. So There you go, Dr. Abrams' advice on healthcare as a guitar player. Now we get to the section I'm sure some of you have been waiting for. As you get a little bit more competent, as I discussed earlier, you're going to want to actually play with other musicians, to interact with other musicians. The most important lesson to remember here is however many musicians you're going to interact with, be part of the team. The best compliment I've ever had is when somebody came along to me one night and said that band is really, really tight. Again, this is very important. We can play lead bits and we can play rhythm parts. I'm going to show you all how to do that in a minute. But always remember, just be part of that team. What I've done here is I've actually created a few backing tracks, and we're going to show you various different rhythms and various different songs, and how first of all you can play rhythm to them. There's different ways of playing rhythm, and there's different ways of playing very simple lead licks, not unlike the ones we've covered in the last two sessions, that you can use to make the music sound fuller and more heartfelt. Here comes the first backing track now. It starts to get interesting here. As you noticed, obviously I was playing in the key of A minor, but all I was doing was some simple different positions with my little pinky to form some nice, interesting, very full and simple passing chords. I'll just go very briefly over those with you. Watch my hands very carefully now. A minor, A minor 7th, A minor 9th, A minor 10th, A minor augmented 5th, A minor 6th. They sound horrendously complicated when you call them out, but as you can see quite clearly, they're all based very simply around the one chord. Again. On the end bit, you probably noticed me doing this. Again, that's based very simply around that kind of simple blues riff that we showed you in the last two sessions. It's getting fun, isn't it? Putting that all together once more, the first time I'm going to play some simple lead licks, and I want you to play rhythm guitar. Doesn't matter what you play it the way you feel it. That's most important. In the second half of it, I'm going to lay back and play rhythm guitar and let you play the lead section. So let's play together. Let's interact. Rocking right along now, and I do mean quite literally rocking along, we're going to do something in that good old favourite guitar player's key of, what is it? You've guessed, it's E. We're going to do a heavy rock pattern or a medium rock pattern, very straightforward. Chords for these, we've gone over these in the past, so you must know them by now. E, C sharp minor, A and B. Let's go with the track now. At the risk of repeating myself, I'm sure that you could see what I was doing there. Just going over those simple chords that we've already covered in the past two and this session, and changing them around, changing the patterns a little bit, just to make them that little bit more interesting, but most especially to make them feel rocky, effective, and like I'm doing it from the heart. In the next part, I'm going to do what we did before. First of all, I'll play the lead part and you be my rhythm player. In the second part, we'll swap roles. I'll lay back, be the rhythm player, and you can boogie away to your heart's content. Okay, let's take it one more time. We're going to slow down a little bit now and play a soul ballad. The track that we're going to do is called Love Won't Let You Down, and again it's one of my own compositions. Let's look at the finger work now and the chords. There's nothing new, but just to show you where we're going. Watch my hands carefully. First chord is A, the next chord is E7th, A, A7th, C sharp 7th, F sharp minor, D, E7th, A, D, E7th, and finally A. Putting that all together now, same as before, I'm going to be the lead guitar player and play some very simple stuff. You be my rhythm guitar player. Then we'll swap roles. I'll be your rhythm guitar player and you blow away like crazy. Here comes the track now. Something that we haven't extensively covered in this video is country music. I'm going to play a little piece for you now and have a good time. See you at the end of this piece of music. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there you go. Hitch up your pants, fasten your braces, all join hands and we're off to the races. Sorry about the pun. That was a very straightforward, simple country piece of music in E, A, D and G. Very straightforward sequence. I'm sure you must have noticed there that I was playing some slightly different chords to the ones we've already gone over. So, just to get it right, let's go over first of all the chord sequence. Watch my hands. First chord is an E chord. You can see here my first finger is on the 5th position on the B string. My little pinky is on the 7th position on the G string. My 4th pinky is on the 7th position again on the A string, and the middle one comes over here and places at the 6th position on the D string. If you play it open from the A string downwards, it sounds like this. Now here's something interesting. All you do is simply pull your finger over to the B position or the 7th position on the E string and play alternatively like this. Play the whole open chord and you'll see what I mean. The next one, do you remember we went over triads, major triads? Again, I'm making an A major with my middle finger here on the 5th position, my 4th finger on the G string at the 6th position, and lastly my index finger on the D string at the 5th position. Play these open from the A string downwards, it sounds like this, but this time you can use the open E string to comp. The D chord, or the D7th, is exactly the same shape as we've made in E. Difference is it goes down a tone, 2 semitones or 2 frets. Again, play the whole chord open and comp over this time on the bass string or the E string at the 5th position to make an A. Sounds like this. And lastly, the chord in the sequence is G, so we just play a straightforward G major or even a G7th. Taking that a stage further this time, starting in the E position that I've just showed you and comping just in the same way, but what we're going to do now is stretch it out and pick. This is the way that I pick. It's not necessarily the right way, but it's the way that I feel most comfortable with, and it sounds okay to me. So we're starting on the A position, on the A note. And this time I'm picking, in this case, with my middle finger on my right hand. And I'm playing these 3 notes. This is how it goes together. Speed it up, it sounds like this. Go on to the A position now, and again comp in the same way that I showed you before, picking the same strings as before. Speed it up, sounds like this. The next one is the D that we've discussed before again. Same. Let's try it with the track slowed down. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Something slightly different there, a bit of good old-fashioned country music, and again very straightforward and simple. Again, I can't reiterate enough how this video and this particular session is aimed at getting you involved and interacting with other musicians. An area which we haven't covered so far, and we're going to finish up with this, is soul. Straightforward, good old rock and soul, the basis of all good music. My favourites, that's for sure, again. 2. Let's play the track first of all. I'm going to have a little blow just to get the cobwebs out. Here we go. Smoking along quite nicely there. What I'd like to do now is break down the percussive and rhythmic sounds, playing some very simple rhythm parts. I'm going to show you another couple of chords in a minute. They've got very, very highfalutin names, so don't get too worried about it, because again, they're quite simple, and I'll show you quite clearly how to do them. Again, we're going to cover some of the chords that we've already learnt in all of these sessions. I personally like to play very percussively and rhythmically with the drummer. I know that sounds kind of strange to you, but you'll see what I mean as I play the track. Here we go. The newcomer in here, chord-wise, is one with a very highfalutin name. Again, it's not too difficult, so don't panic. Here we go. This chord is called simply a G7th and 9th with an augmented 5th. My little pinky is resting on the 5th position on the E string. My 4th is resting on the 5th position on the B string. My middle pinky is over here on the 4th position on the G string. And lastly, my index finger is resting on the D string at the 3rd position. And we play from the D downwards, and it sounds like this. Remember, you only need to play those 4 strings. We go up here, exactly the same position, with the fingers that is. It's quite nice because you can play that anywhere along the fretboard and it still sounds funky. Not a lot I need to go through the other chords because we'd be going over old ground, but as you saw, quite simply I was using a few 9ths, I was using 7ths, I was using majors and major triads. So let's break the track down, we'll slow it down, and this time let's just purely concentrate on those rhythmic and percussion sounds. Here it comes. Did you notice that while I was playing those chords, I was using the heel of my hand here to damp across all of the strings, and when I was actually playing the chords themselves, I was actually playing them and attacking them very hard, so it sounded like this. Gives you that nice rhythmic and percussive attacking feel. As before, we're going to put the track back to the original speed, and you can fool around and play around and do what you like. Remember, when you're playing lead bits, I know I've showed you a few things which I think will be useful in your musical armoury, so don't rush it, just take it easy, just groove along with the track. And remember, when you play the lead bits, you don't need to play 1,000 notes. I've heard some absolutely incredibly great players play one note in 24 bars and it sounded like heaven, believe me. So take your time, take it nice and easy, let's have a real good time together. First of all, we've just been talking about percussive and rhythmic sounds, so you play the rhythm, I'll play the lead. Next time we'll swap and we'll swap and we'll swap and we'll swap and we'll swap. Here comes the track. In this program series, I hope I've given you enough good information on which to build a really solid foundation for your music. Remember the title, From the Heart. That's the most important thing to remember. It doesn't matter whether you want to play for fun or enjoyment, or just like myself, take it up as a career. It doesn't matter either what style you're going to take up, whether you want to play rock, country, FM rock, heavy metal, whatever. None of those musics are very far apart from each other. You'll hear the occasional blues lick or the occasional country lick coming in even into a heavy metal song, or even into another song, or any or all of these styles. We haven't covered written music, theory, scales or tablature in this series, simply because I just want to get you playing. I've had great fun being with you. I've enjoyed your company, and I hope you've enjoyed mine. See you soon. God bless. Take care.